Greetings. This is Ray Fischer from AHA. I'm going to be presenting to you from my home office at this point in time. Originally, we would have been on the stage in Chicago in April, and this is the same presentation I actually delivered kind of pre-COVID in Brooklyn in March. So for those who were there, we know that that week that we were in Brooklyn was a little bit dicey. We kind of were hand sanitizing and kind of keeping a little bit of social distance while we were at the conference. But we did have a packed room that witnessed this particular presentation I'm going to walk you through today. As we know, much has changed in the last 3 to 4 months, and I'll ad lib as appropriate as to how some of these techniques play into the current world situation we're in. So with that said, I am Ray Fischer. I'm the CEO and founding partner of AHA. I'm a native Detroiter, born and raised here. Left town for 20 years, went to Chicago, New York, St. Louis, and then back home in 2002. I was a Pepsi brand manager in my 90s, and the real relevant point there is that that was when I really started to use research in earnest. I had insights teams at Pepsi that helped us, craft our strategies as we moved forward. And a lot of those people that I worked with on those teams are my friends today. And in fact, Pepsi is a client of ours at this point in time. So that was where I learned how research can help me develop strategies and effectively market my products. So the other interesting thing that's of note is I got my technology immersion, since this is a technology company I run. That immersion happened 98 to 02 during the dot-com bubble and burst. So I did learn how to vision how technology can help analog things go digital. I did understand the architecture and met a lot of technologists who still work with us today. So that was a very important time period in my life. I did get into focus group moderating and started in 2002. And actually the last groups I did were 2012 when we launched AHA, and I got really sucked into building this company and growing it and, caring, nurturing, feeding, and leading it into the place where it is today. So I became an online qual pioneer in 2005. And there's many of us who can claim that, and we kind of all know who we are. In 2005, we did our first study. We used a CRM piece of software that we used for data collection. We eventually, in 2007, launched our first platform called Living Diary. And I think it's really important to note here, the reason we got into online qual in 2005 was my partners and I looked at the internet and we were thinking, my goodness, this is an amazing tool and it could actually, make an impact on face-to-face research, which we thought eventually could go away. Obviously, that should never happen, but right at this point in time, over the last three to 4 months, there really is no face-to-face research. So we kind of were a little bit of doing a little Nostradamus there as far as, having the vision that something could happen at some point in time and actually being in position to, continue and flourish in this period of time when there is no face-to-face. So we launched AHA in 2012. We've been growing very aggressively since. We've got a really nice team. Most of them have been with us since the beginning. Obviously, we've added some since then, but it's been a very, very fun run, and we're totally looking forward to the future in our 8th year. Another thing that's really important to note here too is that we became Zoom's first global integration partner in 2019. That was huge. So we were the first in the world to do this, where we actually integrated Zoom into our platform, which obviously is what we're going to talk about today. So one thing that I like to say, I'm always looking for analogies, and I'm a big rock and roll fan, and I love the Stones. And we were trying to think of like, what is face-to-face research and online qual? How do they fit together? And essentially, at the end of the day, we kind of feel like they're like rock and roll. It's just a natural fit between rock and roll and face-to-face and online qual. So we like to use that analogy to kind of explain it in a kind of fun way as to how we think the two fit together. So what's changed? Essentially technology. As I mentioned, we integrated Zoom into our platform, but bigger than that, in 2000, and I believe it was 2012, maybe 2010, Steve Jobs actually introduced the iPhone. Now let me back up on that. I actually think it's the 12th year anniversary of the iPhone, so that was probably 2008. So since the smartphone came around, many of you may remember sending out flip cameras to respondents to have them take video and upload it to the platform. And, that was super cool and progressive at the time, very expensive, kind of a little bit of a pain in some ways. We actually used those cameras as incentives. But nowadays, since the smartphone is ubiquitous and essentially everybody around the world that you'd want to talk to has a smartphone in their pocket capable of doing research on that phone, and in most particular, being able to communicate via video and pictures, okay? So the technology has changed. Cell and Wi-Fi is ubiquitous, and we're going to see the technology obviously evolve more and more over time. Things will become even simpler and easier to do. Beaming things up to platforms and whatnot will be extremely fast, and it's already really fast at 4G, and obviously a lot of us are seeing our markets move into 5G. So technology will continue to move forward. We will do our best to stay on top of that, leverage it to do better research in the future. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to go through 5 creative approaches of how to mix online qual with face-to-face. And some of this, obviously the face-to-face in-person stuff is on hold right now, but it all still applies as it relates to online face-to-face research, okay? So the 5 topics are going to be digital ethnos, or the 5 approaches: digital ethnography followed by a webcam or IDI, webcam, IDI, or groups. A combination of a pre-IDI, an online study, and a post-IDI. That's a pretty cool approach as well. We've got webcam concept testing I'm going to walk you through today. We'll go through webcam and projective exercises and the power of doing those live and via webcam with the researcher and consumer in the same place. And then also we're going to talk about online homework preceding live focus groups. Now again, my original presentation in Brooklyn was all about online homework preceding, in most cases, face-to-face focus groups. What I'm going to be referencing more today, and hopefully in the future that'll come back, of course, but online homework preceding online focus groups or IDIs, okay? So let's go into the first one, the digital ethno, followed by webcam, IDIs, and groups. This is where we really got into this business. Digital ethnos was where we started. That really was our specialty. Obviously, we branched into many, many more things that can be done. But the idea here is that we do a ton of 3 to 5 day studies that take up about 30 to 45 minutes of respondent time. So what this allows you to do is get deeper, deeper insights and really tease out things that occur during that online asynchronous portion of your study. So what we give you with the ability to do this follow-up IDI or interview is the ability to probe deeper with your best respondents in this live scenario. So what we like to do, and the kind of the best practice approach that we profess to, is that if you do a study, an online study with, let's say, 40 people, and they do this 3 to 5 day, digital ethno, for instance, what you have the ability there to do is to go out and then grab 10. So grab your 10 stars. You'll know who is good. You can even do a little webcam, exercise in there, a little bit of, asynchronous webcam, get a little video for them, find out who the real, articulate and maybe more media-centric or telegenic people that are in your study who could go deeper and have a great conversation with you and share deeper, richer insights. You have the ability to grab those people and then schedule them for 45 to 60-minute webcam interviews. This gives you, again, that opportunity to go deeper, get clarification on things that might need to be a little bit more discussed, maybe even bounce some of your themes and findings off them to get their input and reactions, and then enhance that connection or leverage that connection you created over those 3 to 5 days moderating that asynchronous study. So this live video will also help you with your report and the storytelling within your report. So it's awesome to have video clips, supporting key themes that you're presenting to your clients. So what this kind of looks like in a 3 to 5 day study, a lot of times on our platform, day 1 might be, getting to know you. Day 2, you may do a projective collage technique or maybe a journey mapping exercise. This little diagram here, this is our storytelling exercise here. That's often a part of things, and that can take people 30 to 45 minutes to write. So that may take up one of those days you do. You might do a day on competitive understanding. What are the competitive brands within the brand set that your client is operating within? So you might want to understand perceptually, where they fit in a brand mapping tool. And then, again, part of this also might be, hey, take me around, show me your fridge. Or in this case here, we did a study around sound and engineering of sound and the tools that people who record things professionally use. And in this case, they gave us a little how-to, DIY tour of their setup in their office that was narrated as well, accompanied by transcripts. So over the course of, again, 3 to 4 or 5 days, you can get a lot of stuff done. Then again, pick your 10-star respondents, schedule these these individual IDI sessions, and then you go ahead and moderate those and get deeper, get more connected, and get some great clips, great thematic supporting quotes, and you're off to the races for writing an unbelievable report. So best practice approach in this particular method: pick your star respondents, use video in the asynchronous to vet camera friendliness. And what this is just basically, hey, turn on your webcam and answer a question. Maybe it's the introduction. The moderator does their little video intro that the respondent would actually see. And then, hey, flip your camera on and tell me a little bit about you. So that gives you a little bit of an intro to who they are. And again, helps you vet for the best people to bring into your IDIs. It also gives you a chance to identify the more tech savvy people, who's the people who are comfortable with, doing a webcam conversation. It also gives you a chance, if you pick 10, if you've got a couple of segments, you can get a balance between the two segments. And then what you definitely want to do is you want to professionally schedule and incent appropriately. So the professionally schedule, you can DIY schedule, no problem with that, but usually recruiters will do that, and it pays to have them actually do the setup of the interviews themselves. And of course, from our end, there's tech checks and onboarding support, for both moderator, respondent, and clients. And again, incent appropriately, a typical kind of hour-long IDI with regular consumers might be $75 to $100. If it's something like a professional person, like a doctor, you may be paying $300 or more for that particular hour of interviewing. Okay. So this next one I want to talk about is a combination of pre-IDI, online study, and post-IDI. So this is a cool technique that one of my clients does all the time and introduced to me a couple of years ago, which I thought was amazing. So what they essentially would do was recruit people to their study. So let's say they've got 30 people for their study. They'll actually do like a 15 or 20-minute webcam IDI scheduled with those people just to kind of get to know them a little bit. It's really not to bounce anybody out of the study. It's really just to warm them up about the topic, who the moderator is. So this is taking the idea of doing a moderator intro video and taking it to Fulbright, where, it's like actually a conversation. And this can be done webcam. Some people do these even on the phone. But again, a little bit of a warm up so that you kind of develop, a deeper relationship with respondents. So what this does is it does increase engagement. It stimulates interest in the study topic, so they know exactly what you're going to talk about, not what you're looking for so much, but just kind of gets their head, kind of thinking about what we're going to be doing over the multiple days. You get a better chance to explain what they're going to do each day. And then you also get the chance to enhance the conversation and commitment during the online phase. So the whole thing is then brought home with a wrap-up IDI. So you got the pre, you got maybe 3 to 5 days in the field of doing various and sundry different exercises. And then finally, when it's done, you could do IDIs with everybody, or you could pick your stars again. It's really up to you. And the budget sometimes does dictate that as well. Okay. So the way that looks is, you get your pre-IDI. So over here, you've got your moderator and your respondent, and they're having a little chit chat over here. Then they'll go into their, exercises of what they might do over multiple days. Sometimes they include store trips. We've recently done a laundry study where we actually had people show us how they do their laundry and the tools and products they use to make that happen. We also mix in some social activities from time to time. So there's collaboration and opportunities to do some ideation together in a group. And then also we do a lot of journey mapping as well. So that can be a component of that, again, multiple day study. And then finally, when you're done, again, this one client I'm referencing that gave me this idea in the beginning a couple of years ago, they actually do a post-IDI with everybody in a study. It seems like a lot of work, and it typically can be, especially if you have 30 to 36 respondents. That's quite a bit of interviewing, but she finds it to bring great value to her study and the story that she's going to present to her clients at the end. But again, to limit the budget, make it a little bit simpler, you may actually just pick, 10 or 12 stars and do the IDIs with them. Over on this side, again, on the pre-IDI, these can be as short as 15 minutes, so it's a lot less work for you as a moderator. And on this side here, these tend to be 45 to 60 minutes on the follow-up stuff. Okay. So this best practice approach on this is, gives you a chance to personally get acquainted with respondents in that pre-IDI. You get to know each other. It creates a relationship right out of the box. does create and leverage that human connection between you and the respondent. You also get a chance to explain what you're doing. You know, what are your objectives and what is it you're expecting of them? You've also got that chance to probe with insider knowledge during the asynchronous phase. You kind of know who they are. So there, again, there's already a relationship there. So when you do dive a little bit deeper on some of their responses in the asynchronous phase, when you launch probes at them, it just gives them a little bit better feel for who you are and what you might be looking for. And then, you know, the post-IDI gives you a chance to fill in any knowledge gaps, test any theories you might be, you know, putting together as you've gone through the study. And then finally, you get to leverage that friendship you've created essentially, or that relationship, to really get honest, open, and candid responses from your respondents. Okay. So this third one here I'm going to go through, this is WEBCAM concept testing. So I want to walk you through that. And it's a reasonably straightforward thought here. We're going to do concept testing live online using WEBCAM and screen share, of course. So the interesting thing here is we've got different ways to do this. So on this WEBCAM piece, respondents, you know, have a great chance here with you to narrate their reactions, thoughts, and feelings about ads. You know, packaging is a really popular approach. Positioning statements is very dominant, and also a chance to react to new product ideas. So there's a couple ways this can be done. One, it can be asynchronous. So you can use the technology within platforms, and particularly within ours. You'd use the Zoom technology. A respondent would just click record, and they'd be able to asynchronously record their review or their reactions to the ideas. So essentially, you're hearing them walk through and look at the ideas in any way, shape, or form you want. You can also have them use our concept markup tool, both live or asynchronously, to highlight keywords, phrases, place stars next to certain things that need to be explained, etc. The second method is the moderator shares concepts with respondents in a live fashion. So you schedule your IDI or group, and you get people on there, and you actually walk through the concepts with them. You share them. We can rotate those automatically using our true rotation tool on our platform. So you can actually have those, you know, you can reduce any order bias that might be if you just went in a static exposure, you know, one after another. We can actually rotate those. So whatever you do show them is truly randomized and balanced. And then finally, you can combine 1 and 2 as a process. So the cool thing there is they can do it asynchronously, and then you can follow up with that IDI, and you can have them walk through what it is that they discussed, shared with you, whether it was written or narrated as they went through the process. Okay, so the concept testing. So if you look at it this way, over here on the left side, you've got a moderator and a respondent basically looking at ideas and reacting and just doing it like you would face-to-face. It's pretty much identical, except everyone's in the comfort of their home or home office or wherever they want to be, essentially. And then, you know, the asynchronous method over here is where respondents just go through the concepts themselves and react either via, again, video, through video, or through just, you know, answering open-ended questions and closed-ended questions regarding the ideas that they're presented. Okay. So the best practice approach to that, you want to be incredibly clear with your respondents every time you do anything with them. But of course, in this case, if they're going to be doing something on their own in an asynchronous kind of fashion, recording their reaction to new ideas, you're going to want to make sure you're very clear as to what they're supposed to do. You want to be careful on how many concepts in interviews, or how many concepts per interview you might show. So we're not big on going more than maybe 3 on a qual deep dive per day anyway. So if somebody's going to go through, you know, 9 concepts asynchronously, you might want to break those 9 concepts up over 3 days. So they see 3 per day, again, using our true rotation tool to get complete order balance of exposure. And then the other thing you want to do is you don't really want to exceed 30 minutes from an asynchronous approach. So if you do 9 ideas and 3 per day, you'd expect them to spend about 10 minutes on each concept. Okay, so going beyond 30 minutes in concept testing asynchronously, respondents get fatigue and blur. They start to write less and less with each, you know, corresponding or each subsequent exposure to an idea. And they also, at the same time, start to get a little bit confused where blur clicks in. And that's where they start to refer to, you know, if they see 5 ideas, for instance, which you shouldn't do, and they start referring back to the first or second one in that review of the 5th idea. So you want to keep things, you know, a little bit light in that regard. Now, The other thing you want to do is for each individual interview, you want to follow the exact line, or for each idea, the exact line of questioning. So what I mean by that is you don't want to have different lines of questioning for different ideas. Okay, you want it to be very static, so your comparatives are identical, your structural comparatives. And then finally, you want to use rotation, as I've mentioned several times here, to avoid any kind of order bias. Okay, so on this fourth one is WEBCAM and projective exercises. So this is also something that can be done live or asynchronously. It's really up to you. And the whole notion here is that you want people, and let me back up on projective for a second. Projective exercises like collage or storytelling are a great way to get people to go deeper and connect in a different way with their feelings and emotions. If you ask somebody to go ahead and, if you said, hey, how do you feel about buying a new house? They'll give you a couple sentences and it might be pretty good. But if you said, hey, go grab 5 images from our collage carousel or our gallery, go grab 5 images that line up with your emotions or feelings or attitudes around buying a new house. They'll go grab those 5 images. They can drop in a little word or phrase that describes how they feel about each of those images, what that image connects with emotionally with them. And then you can actually then have them explain it in more detail. The difference there is you would have gotten a couple sentences if you asked an open-ended question, but by using the collage tool, you got visual representation, words and phrases associated with those emotions, but also the story of why they picked the images they did to represent their feelings. So the liquid gold truly is in the explanation of the collage and why they picked the individual images they did for that particular collage. So what ends up happening, in this case too, again, you can have them look at these things in an asynchronous fashion, where they're just responding via text, writing back to you about their thoughts and feelings. You can have them also record it. So it can be a live session, or live recording that they do asynchronously at their own time. You review that and then follow up with an IDI or a group if you were bringing a bunch of people together. And the whole idea of this is you've got the ability here to inspire more feeling, sharing, and connecting with your respondents. Okay, again, via the projective technique. All right, so the other thing you'll learn too, as I mentioned, is that you will get more depth, more content if they actually talk through what the collage means to them. So for instance, if you did have a video response to their collage where they're actually turning the webcam on and talking about it, you're going to get more words than you would if you asked them to write about it. Okay. So, and again, the other thing you can do asynchronously is probe as you would as if you were in a live moderated session. Okay. So the webcam and projective exercises. So you've got this ability here to do things like a projective journey. In this case, this was a kind of step on the commute to work, step 1, 2, 3, 4. So this journey here, they put this together. They did record their own session and talk about it. And then the moderator came in afterwards and he spoke with the respondent, and the respondent took them through this journey, why they picked the images they did to represent their feelings for each stage of this particular commute to work journey. Okay, so that's how that worked. So asynchronous piece, again, could be recorded, but then a live discussion between moderator and respondent to go deeper and really understand why they picked the images they did to represent their feelings. So best practice approach here is you've got, you want to instruct respondents to narrate every thought and feeling if you're asking them to walk through it live, or recorded, and then you would look at that later and then do your IDI. If you do it live with them, you do not, like if they are creating collage while you're watching them do it, which is totally doable too, don't interrupt them. It's kind of like a user experience study. We don't want them to, get disrupted by you. You want their stream of consciousness to flow. You want to understand, what it is they're thinking and feeling, and let them kind of, drive the traffic. Of course you can probe. When an opportunity comes up, just kind of sit on your ideas for a minute. Let them, again, finish their thoughts completely. Don't feel compelled that you have to jump in and ask a question at every point in time. You really want to let them kind of run with it. Okay. And again, strategic probes, of course, as they occur. And remember, in this technique, you're an observer and not the star of the show. So again, let them do the talking. Let them be the star or the central focus. The next thing is you want to focus on images or words and the associated emotions with those. So you're really looking to understand, emotions and attitudes related to images or words that they might use to describe their thoughts and feelings. Okay. So and finally, this fifth one is online homework. Preceding focus groups. And again, when I originally came up with this approach here, this was all about online as it relates to live focus groups. So doing a little homework beforehand, and we do this all the time, but now these groups or these IDIs are, on the platform. So doing homework beforehand is phenomenal. The really, really cool thing to do here, and I'll explain this, and it's become even more obvious to me over the last 3 or 4 months, is that if you're going to do groups or IDIs, let's say you want to do 16 people, you want 4 groups, maybe it's 90-minute webcam groups to talk about something, the homework, the homework beforehand, and then obviously a deeper topic. What you'll typically want to do, in my opinion, is you might want to recruit 20 people to that study. So in the homework phase, you've got this great vetting tool. So this tool gives you an opportunity to see, again, if you do a little video exercise too, who's camera friendly, who's articulate, who's really tapped into what we're doing, and who do you really want to talk to? So you recruit 20, you bring 16 into the IDIs, so you could do 16 IDIs, or let's say 4 groups of 4. So these people that you pick not only are, going to be great for your, interviews, whether it's group or one-on-ones, but it also, this homework supercharges groups. What it does is it gives these individuals who've done this task a little bit of background as to what you're trying to do. And the tools that are really ideal for this homework are collage, storytelling, a social board, which is amazing. I mean, it really is cool to get people to do a little stuff to get to know each other before groups, or store trips. Those are cool too, mobile missions, we call them. So in this case here, the social exercises, as I just highlighted in the previous bullet, they allow you to get to know each other. The group gets to know each other beforehand too. So that's super cool. So when they get in there, that you don't have to waste any time on introductions. You get an understanding of who they are, you know what they're all about, etc. And then finally, video, these store trip mobile missions beforehand really gets you closer to respondents. This could be a store trip. It could be a tour of the pantry, okay? So next, as I'm trying to keep an eye on my little clock here, I've got a couple minutes left here. This would be, your homework beforehand. So they might do a collage about, what do luxury goods mean to you? They might tell you a story about, your pet and their aging process and how you feel during that process. Or here's an example of a social board where, people actually get to know each other. They like and comment on each other's stuff. They post ideas and share. And again, when they get in a group, it's like they actually know each other already. So, and then finally, you've got the ability here to do your IDI or your groups where people will actually do come together with you as the moderator. This is obviously the live piece, which will eventually come back into play. But right now, obviously, most of this stuff is focused up here in the virtual or online world. So the best practice approach here is allow enough time for respondents to complete it well in advance. So I'd require them to be done, probably 2 days before they're supposed to do it. Use the homework to disqualify any people that aren't really great. Share the exercises with clients beforehand, of course. And then you can allow backroom access to see those asynchronous things they've done in advance, or obviously observe the groups themselves. And then, if it makes any sense, share your assignments with the whole group. So sometimes it is, let's show all the collages with everybody. And then in social activities, this is kind of a funny one. This went over really well in Brooklyn. Maybe not as funny here because you can't hear the canned laughter. But in social activities, you can discourage any flirtation amongst respondents. And the funny thing there is we did a study a couple of years ago where, people were actually sending flirtatious notes back and forth to each other. And they actually did meet at the groups and they had a little bit of a connection. Okay. And my final thoughts, face-to-face and online work great in tandem. That's what this has been all about. I hope I've convinced you of that. Combined, they address the range of client preferences. So you've got people that, hey, they love asynchronous. A lot of people love face-to-face. This brings the two together again, like rock and roll. It leverages online tech capabilities with the humanity of face-to-face. And then finally, it does ultimately inspire a deeper and more engaged respondent. And at the end of the day, writing a report becomes a lot more powerful when you've got images from asynchronous and you've got video from the live pieces to support whatever your thematic findings are. So in conclusion, this is my contact info. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. There is my email address. There is our website that has all this great information on it. And then finally, my phone number. So I'm always happy to chat with people strategically about what might be coming up and helping them to design and craft their study. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching my little virtual Quirks presentation. And I hope I get to meet you all face to face in the near future. Take care.